Brian Robinson is not playing tonight in the Monday Night Football preseason game, as he is a trade candidate right now. The rumors have been persisting. I think it was Ben Standig, formerly of The Athletic, I believe he has his own Substack now, was the first one I saw see that Brian Robinson could be a cut candidate. I was kind of shocked by that, but then other national reporters, such as Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network, have said, yeah, no, the Commanders are shopping Brian Robinson. So Faraz, Jacory Croskey-Merritt, otherwise known as Bill, which... hell, I just love that. Just call me Bill. Love that. He has been a big time hype bunny in the fantasy football streets. So first of all, what was your reaction to the news that the Commanders are, I mean, it seems like a lock now at this point, going to part ways with Brian Robinson?
That's what it seems like. I mean, this is not just speculation anymore. I mean, if Brian Robinson's asking, not to play and the team is granting him that wish, that means it's pretty much locked in that, they are looking to shop him, or he doesn't seem to be, in their plans. But, it makes sense. I mean, he's not somebody who was necessarily, an added, huge added value to the offense, right? It wasn't because of Brian Robinson they'll be winning games or going to be winning games this season. And it might go to show just like how well Bill is actually doing in training camp. I just had Josh Taylor on, he's a beat reporter for the Commanders for A to Z Sports on our podcast. And he basically said it himself that Brian Robinson is doing much of the same, but Bill is actually somebody who is popping in almost every single camp, right? He's making plays, all over the place. And I'm going to be really curious tonight to see what happens there, what the split looks like, how much of, those first team reps he's going to get alongside Austin Eckler. It's going to be really interesting. And, one thing about Bill is that, you kind of look back and you look at what these guys were as prospects in college. I took a look. Among 857 FBS running backs with 200 or more carries since 2014, 95th percentile after contact rate, 98th percentile missed tackle rate, and 97th percentile breakaway run rate. Now, obviously, didn't play, Power 4, Power 5 football, his entire career, but this is still worth something. Like, he could actually be good.
No, he wasn't without his fans during the NFL draft process. Like, he was not a name we didn't I didn't hear of his nickname Bill, but I heard the name Jacory Croskey-Merritt throughout the course of the draft process. And we knew this was going to happen with running backs in this year's class for us because it was such a deep group. Like, some guys were going to fall through the cracks, right? I mean, even a guy like Devin Neal was discussed as like a fourth round. He goes in the sixth round of the New Orleans Saints. Like, that was going to happen with this year's draft class. There's no question about that. And the thing that I feel I was joking with you before we got started that there was a couple times, even in like the Kings Classic draft at the Fantasy Football Expo, like I ended up taking, and the person sitting next to me can attest to the fact that I was just like, ugh, whatever, as I made the pick, just he's the top of my board. Literally, I was just, whatever, man. Yeah, Brian Robinson Jr., I'll go ahead and take him here. I feel like an idiot, though, for overlooking the fact that when the Commanders lost in the playoffs and throughout the course of the offseason, like leading to free agency in the draft, I kept saying, don't rule out running back as a team need. Like, we know the name Brian Robinson. We obviously know the name Austin Eckler, but from their after their week 14 bye and all through their loss in the conference championship game, the Commanders ranked 28th in EPA per rush on running back runs, 30th in percentage of running back runs that went for 5+ yards, and 27th in yards after contact per running back rush attempt. So that's not like Jaden Daniels removed from the equation here, just the running backs. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, but especially Brian Robinson, really was not getting it done in that way. So I think obviously like a new face being involved here isn't a surprise for Oz. It's just the fact that the guy is a 7th rounder. I think that's why people have been sort of slow on the uptake with Jacory Croskey-Merritt.
But also because he's a 7th rounder, we're so much more intrigued, right? And we have someone to root for now. And everyone's going to be rooting for him tonight. There's no doubt about it. I can't imagine anyone rooting against him tonight. I can see X going absolutely wild if something good happens tonight for Bill. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Brian Robinson Jr. was somebody that, he could have walked into 10+ touchdowns this year, if he was the starter. But it would have been just a simple, volume game, right? Which, a lot of running backs can fall into a lot of volume on a good offense, in a red zone role. It could happen. You never know. Hey, listen, I will say, Matt, for all of those shares you have of Brian Robinson right now, you never know. Maybe he lands in a spot, a couple teams could use a running back on early downs. Listen, a team that I think about is the Bears, somebody
Yeah.
to complement DeAndre Swift, maybe, right? In that, little Jamal Williams, David Montgomery role. You never know.
Yeah, they were playing Deion Hankins was the guy that they were playing last night on the Sunday night. I was like, who is this guy? I mean, admittedly, like hand up, never heard of him. I knew about
Same
Kyle
here.
Monungai. Obviously, Roshan Johnson's been dealing with an injury, so yeah, no, that's a good call out there. Houston is also obviously dealing with a lot of running back issues as well. So there are some spots where Brian Robinson could get traded, and if you you could fall basically backwards into a decent fantasy pick if you drafted him, like I did in a couple spots. But just last thoughts from me on the Commanders running backs. Obviously, if you're listening to this on Monday, you've already seen the preseason. But just for now, I've gone ahead and bumped both Bill and Austin Eckler to like running back 47, 48, the classic hedge ranking. Like we'll see how that kind of pans out there. We don't know what Brian Robinson is going to, like if he's actually going to trade it or what, but if he does, I guess I'd bump those guys up a little further, but they're certainly like good late round picks right now that if I'm drafting teams, I would want to take them sort of on that late round range.